My dad was the one who was had a green card, who was legal, but by the time he applied for us, it took forever for us to be able to get our legal status. And even with that, he was just kept telling me, look, there's so much opportunity. There's so many things that you can do in the US, and it doesn't matter who you are. You could achieve it if you want to. So those things were embedded in me from the day that I came to the US, and I believed them. My dad kept impounding in me that this is the land of opportunity. You're going to become whoever you want to be. You're going to become this big thing. And he kept telling me that I'm going to be this big thing. I never even knew what it was, but I knew I believed him. Whatever he tells me, I was just like, okay, I'm going to be this big thing. Whatever that big thing is, I didn't know.
You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their current portfolio allocation. Now to your hosts, Clark Sheffield and Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 222. Clark, how's it going? What's going on in your world?
Doing pretty well. What's going on with you?
Not a whole lot, man. Just thinking through year-end stuff here. We get pretty busy this time of year, and we got a lot of things on the horizon. Exciting for 2022, man. We're starting off with a bang, and
yeah, this is the time. If you work in accounting and finance, you're like, uh-oh, here it comes, right? Busy season coming up, and longer hours, and trying to finish up year-end things. So yeah, getting busy now in the winter.
Yeah, totally. So we got a listener question actually this last week from a gentleman.
So yeah, the message, let me just read the message real quick. The email's from Kevin. It says, I wonder if you know how many active duty millionaires there are. I am trying to encourage young sailors to maximize their TSPs. Granted, I'm an officer and have maximized it since I was allowed to do so in the military at the end of 2003. I don't know the numbers. I did a quick Google search. I don't know if that'll be any accurate, so I'll just refrain from trying to guess. But TSP, Thrift Savings Plan. So obviously, Jace and I don't use one, but just kind of we did a little research just to talk about it because I don't think we've talked about it much on the show. But it says a Thrift Savings Plan is similar to a 401k, but is only open to federal employees and uniformed services personnel. And like a 401k, they have a Roth, or not every 401k, but some 401ks, you have a Roth and traditional option. So you can get your tax breaks. You can invest either method, Roth or traditional. And it's kind of the government's version of the 401k. So oftentimes when we've had military personnel or those that work in government on our show, they've talked about investing in their TSPs. So Thrift Savings Plan, that's a little bit about what that's all about.
Awesome. Last week's episode, we had Melissa. She recently retired just before 50. She's single, never married, no kids. She had a net worth of $2 million. We discussed her story, journey as a single female with a corporate career while using real estate and other investments to put her in a position to retire before 50. This week, we have Martine. She's a Haitian immigrant and is one of the most remarkable stories we have ever heard. She worked through numerous challenges to overcome the odds and succeed not only financially, but in life. She has a net worth of just over $1.5 million and is a chiropractor.
As I think about launching hers, when we first started the show, 4.5 years ago or so, November of 17, at least for me, it was more interesting to hear, hey, how did these people invest, right? Because we didn't have access to that. And that's a little bit, I think, why we initially started it. But over time, I think for both of us, it's become hearing stories, right?
Totally.
What are these people about, and what have they done, and how did they get to where they are, and what's their mistakes, and what can we learn from them? What's the successes that we can pick up and, kind of copy or emulate in our lives, and just hearing and connecting with other people. And this is a story that I think both of us would agree is just remarkable. It's one of our favorite stories in terms of how she was able to persevere and succeed, and just remarkable what she was able to go through. She had a teenage pregnancy early and lived with her dad in New York, I believe. So just going through all of that, overcoming the odds, and now getting to where she is just a remarkable success story for her.
Yeah, it's very humbling. So we're super excited to launch it this week. Without any further delay, let's get into the interview with Martine. Martine, do you want to just give us a little about your background and what you're up to now?
Yes, as I said in my bio, I was born in Haiti, and everyone now, especially being, if you listen to the news, everyone knows that Haiti is a very poor country. I came to the US when I was 13 years old, and my family and I settled in Brooklyn. I am now a chiropractor, and I've been a chiropractor for about 12 years, 14 years, can't count, about 10 to 12 years.
Awesome. And what is your net worth today?
It's about 1.5.
And how is that broken up?
It's broken up into a property that's worth about, last I checked, was about $356,000.
Okay.
And the business is worth about $625,000. And I have an investment property where I practice. It's worth about $280,000. And I have a SEP account that's about $155,000. I have an IRA account that has about $50,000 on it, and a corporation account for business savings that's $120,000, and business checking about $30,000, personal emergency fund $25,000, and the rest is this small checking account about $5,000.
Awesome. So let's talk just a little bit about the IRA and the SEP that you mentioned. Did you start those right when you started your business?
Actually, no. When I started the business, I had no money. I started the business literally with nothing, so I didn't know what to do. It was probably the year 2 into the business as I started growing, and I realized that I started seeking for advice. And I think I went to a meeting with the small business, just a small local business association, and I met someone, and he helped me. That person was a financial advisor, and he helped me set those accounts.
Interesting. Okay, so do you invest those in the market then?
Yes, those are invested in the market. Those are invested in mutual funds mainly. And I do have an advisor that manages those funds. I don't do my own personal finances. I just allocate that to a professional.
Interesting. Okay, so let's just rewind here a little bit. Did you have debt coming out of chiropractic school as well?
Oh my God, I had a lot of debt. My chiropractic degree cost me $300,000. Yes, it was very expensive. I had a lot of debt coming out of school, and I didn't really have any direction as to what I wanted to do. I worked for people for the first 4 or 5 years of my career. I worked for others, and I realized that was not the best way to go. I really felt like having my own practice was what set it off for me, because working for other people were great. I learned a lot. I learned everything that I know in business. I literally would credit that to some of the people that I learned along the years, some of the people I worked for. However, in terms of the earning potential, there's no way I could have done what I did if I didn't own my own practice.
How long did it take you to kind of start paying that off or making big chunks of payments on that?
Actually, I didn't start until almost about 2 years ago aggressively.
Oh, wow.
I stumbled upon Dave Ramsey. It was just so funny because I knew about Dave Ramsey before that. I started Financial Peace University years ago, must have been in 2008. And then I left the program for whatever reason. I don't recall. I don't remember what happened. And I left it after maybe 2 or 3 sessions. And I put all the material away and didn't even look at it until my accountant. I wanted to buy a car. What happened was I wanted to buy a car. The car was $90,000. And I thought because I was making some money, everything was going great, that I could afford to buy a $90,000 car. And then my accountant pulled me aside and said, look, you broke. You can't get this car. And the word broke, when she said you broke, and at that time, I think the business may have grossed $300,000 or $400,000 when she said that. And I couldn't believe that with that kind of money, I would be broke. And then when she broke it down and said, look, you have your personal property, it's worth this much, and you still owe money on it. You're paying the bare minimum. You have this building that you bought for the business, you're still paying the bare minimum. Plus you have your student loan. By the time we added up together, it was close to $700,000. And so she said, unless you pay that off and buy that car cash, then you really cannot buy that car. And then that's when she said, well, do you know about Dave Ramsey? And I was just like, wait a minute. When she started telling me about the baby steps, and I was like, this sounds familiar. And that's when I recalled that I had taken the class years ago and put it away. And I went digging into my library, and sure enough, I found the books and I reread it, and I was mad. I was really upset because to me, I wasted money. I could have, instead of, going on vacations, mind you, I paid for those vacations cash or whatever I didn't really have. I thought because I was not having consumer debts like credit cards that I was doing well, but really and truly I wasn't. So when she gave me a plan, and I then found a financial advisor that was working with the Dave Ramsey network. I think they call them ELPs. And that's when I started to really tackle the debt. And he put me on a program. He had me pay the property first. Then the property was then generating income. And I used those income as well as my income to pay my home. Then after paying my home, we tackled the student loan, and with a vengeance. And before we know it, in May of this year was what I paid off all the student loan. And it feels good.
Wow. So do you any debt now?
No debt, no mortgage, no debt. And I have 2 properties. One, I operate one of my offices as well as my personal home, paid off.
Good for you. That's amazing. That's like Dave Ramsey talking about gazelle intensity right there.
Yes, I did go gazelle intense.
So, Martine, let's back it up here because I want to spend the bulk of this time. I think it's a little bit different than some of our shows. I want to spend the bulk of the time on your story just because I think it's so remarkable. And you wrote a pretty lengthy email to us in a good way that talked about your story and outlined everything that happened up to that debt and paying it off. And in your last line, I like you said, how is that for an immigrant, a minority woman, and a single mom?
Yes.
So that's going to be the title of this episode, by the way.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
But just, let's start all the way at the beginning. You came to the U.S. at the age of 14. What do you remember about your life in Haiti and coming to the U.S.?
Well, my life in Haiti was very happy. I had a very good childhood. I was surrounded by cousins, family members, neighbors that were very, it felt like a community. In the summers, we would be in the city for school, and in the summers we would spend with my grandmother on the countryside. Very family orientated life, very, we experienced a lot of family closeness, a lot of great things, going to the countryside, seeing how things grow, spending times on a farm with animals, riding horses, climbing on trees. Really had a wonderful childhood. And coming to the U.S. was just a dream that we all had, because my father from that time was living in the U.S. for many years. And we really didn't spend much time. I really didn't spend much time with my dad. The first time I saw my dad, I was 6. And when I was born, he was already living in the U.S. He came here in 1970. I was born in 71. So he came back to Haiti in 1976. And it was we were so happy to spend that time with him. He was so, my dad was an educator. He was just always trying to teach, always trying to show us, teaching us something, show us one way, a better way of doing something, always learning something from my dad. And coming to the U.S., I experienced my dad differently than when I was a child, because when we came to the U.S., by then I was a teenager, and he was very strict. And the structure that he had was just not what I was looking forward to. It was this church, school, and church and school. Our life revolved around going to church and going to school. And I didn't expect that. I wanted the same sort of freedom to be able to go on vacation to the countryside, to be able to do the things that we did as kids, to run, to, play with different kids in the neighborhood. New York was very sheltered. We had an apartment. The door had to be locked. There was this long bar thing, this security, this rail that you had to put behind the door for extra security. I could not understand why all the hype, why we had to be so closed in and felt like it was a jail. But because of the opportunities that my dad kept impounding in me, that this is the land of opportunity. You're going to become whoever you want to be. You're going to become this big thing. And he kept telling me that I'm going to be this big thing. I never even knew what it was, but I knew I believed him. Whatever he tells me, I was just like, okay, I'm going to be this big thing. Whatever that big thing is, I didn't know. So that was the difference between being in Haiti, where everything was just so open. And at the time, it wasn't the same political climate as it is now. So we had a whole lot more security. We could go places, we could do things, we could go to the beach. And coming to the US was to me like so much restriction. I couldn't go to the movies without my dad being there. I couldn't see my friends without him taking me to their house. It was just the level of freedom that I felt like I had growing up, I didn't have anymore. Yet there was still a sense of pride in learning and growing. There was always something and opportunity that he was always telling me, well, you got to learn how to do this, because eventually you could end up with a job folding clothes. So if you fold clothes, you got to do it well. Or you got to do it well. If you sweeping the floor, you got to do it well. Even it's just taking pride in the little job that you do, even cooking, taking pride in cooking, because you never know where life would take you. So those were lessons that my dad sort of impounded in me from early on. And also the opportunities that are available in the US. Always, and even though and I said this in my bio, I didn't even have a green card at the time growing up. We got here. My dad was the one who was had a green card, who was legal. But by the time he applied for us, it took forever for us to be able to get our legal status. And even with that, he just kept telling me, look, there's so much opportunity. There's so many things that you can do in the US, and it doesn't matter who you are. You could achieve it if you want to. So those things were embedded in me from the day that I came to the US, and I believe them.
Wow.
Even now, I completely believe, and I tell my daughter all the time that, hey, this is a land of opportunity. If I could do as much as I did, even as a single mom, so can you.
Wow. And you keep mentioning your father. Was your mother in your life at all?
My mother, it's just, I have a very unique life situation. My mother didn't raise me. My dad and my stepmother raised me. So when I was living in Haiti, I was living with my dad and my mother and my stepmother. And when I came to the US, I still came to live with my stepmother and my dad. So my mother, I knew she was my mom, but my stepmother was the one who actually, my dad's wife, who actually, I'm a love child, by the way. So my stepmother is the one who actually raised me.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
my dad, yes.
I just want to read one thing here, a couple sentences, Martine, that you wrote in, and you talked about this a little bit, but I thought this was really well written. You said, my early years in the U.S., my family and I lived way below the poverty line, but I never felt that we were poor because my idea of poverty was in reference to what I saw as a child in Haiti. Someone wearing dirty clothes begging for food and money. Our family of 4 lived in a very small one-bedroom apartment. The building was dilapidated, but we had a home-cooked meal every day. Our clothes were not fashionable, but we were clean and presentable. Our home was warm and full of love. My father told me almost daily how lucky my sister and I were for being in America at such a young age. He told me education was the key to success, and I believed him. Pretty amazing.
Very, very amazing. My dad was very, very big on education, and knew at his age, he felt like things were done for him. He didn't have the opportunities that we had being in the U.S. He came here when he was in his early 40s and had to provide for a family. So things were limited for him, but he literally told us that, hey, this is the line of opportunity almost daily. That we can achieve whatever we want in America. There's, the sky's the limit. And really and truly, when you compare the life that we could have had versus the life that we have now in Haiti, there's no way on earth that I could have imagined doing what I did or what I'm continuing to do, building wealth, building a business for my family, for me and my family, affording, having this lifestyle. There's no way on earth that I could have done it. And trust me, I travel. I've seen other places. I see other places. There's no other country like America. I know that we hear that as a cliche all the time, but it is true. There's no way. I have family in Europe. I have friends and family in Africa and South America, Central America, all over, literally all over the world. There's no one that is in a position like I am. Granted, yes, I did go to school and earn a degree that afforded me a certain lifestyle. But even the family members that I know that are, doctors, or the friends that I know that are living outside of the U.S. that are doctors, that are, dentists, or well within their profession, they are not doing as I'm doing here. So I could speak from experience that this is the best place that I could have lived, that I could have been in. God afforded me the opportunity to be here. So I have to do the best with what I've been given.
Well, it's an amazing story and an amazing perspective. So thanks again for coming on. But let's take a quick pause in the episode from Martine and thank our sponsor, Wix, for supporting this week's show. You can use Wix to create a website that you're proud of. So whether you're starting a small business or a blog or something on the side, check out Wix. It's an awesome platform to create your website. It starts at just $14 a month for the combo plan. It's ad-free. It includes hosting and domain rights for 1 year. So it's easy to use, and you can join over 200 million people already using Wix's wide range of solutions to enhance their business. With enterprise-grade security built into every site, you know you're in safe hands. You can manage everything from one dashboard on desktop and mobile, so you can be available anywhere at any time, in the office, at home, or on the go. Want to get started? Head over to Wix.com and create your website today. So if you're looking to start a business or a blog or anything on the side, check out Wix. And we're grateful for them for sponsoring this week's episode. So let's get back into the episode with Martine. Going forward here with school, did you go to high school in the States, college?
I did.
Keep going here with where the education.
Yes, education-wise, I did complete high school here, and from high school went to college. I started at Brooklyn College, and because my freshman year of high school, I got pregnant. Freshman year, didn't really get a chance to have a whole lot of accumulate credits, so I had to go back. And because my status, I didn't have green card, so I did not qualify for financial aid. And my dad didn't want to pay because he was paying out of pocket for my tuition. So since I got pregnant, he said, no, he's not paying for my education because I got pregnant. This was my punishment. He wouldn't pay for it. So what I did was I went to work, and every chance I get, I would take a credit here and there. Sometimes it would take me 1 year before I could complete one class, a 3-credit hour class. But I did it. I paid for it out of pocket. Eventually, I got my green card when I was about 26, 27. And then that's when I moved to Atlanta and completed my education there.
Martine, how did you persevere through all of this?
Oh, gosh. It was hard. It was hard, but it was hard. I think not wanting for my child to grow up, not wanting to blame anyone for my shortcoming. Not wanting to not succeed because of a decision that I made was really what I kept. And the grace of God, really, because a lot of things I didn't even know I was doing at the time. I didn't even know that this would have propelled me or changed the trajectory of my life. It was just the grace of God and the, determination to succeed. I didn't want to blame anyone for my failures, for my shortcoming. My daughter was born. I was 19 when my daughter was born, and I had nothing. I didn't even have the means to take care of her. But I remember my first job after my daughter was born. I was working at a store, and I was earning $150 a week, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week as a new mom. And the store was near a school in Manhattan called Bow of Manhattan Community College, BMCC. And I would see some of my classmates that I went to high school with going to college while I'm working in front of the store. My job was to stand in front of the store to make sure that people are not stealing some of the clothing that they would put out to advertise to lure people to go inside the store. And it was a very humbling experience for me to have that job, because it taught me that, look, this is where you are now. This is what making those decisions, or some of the decisions that you made, this is where you are now, but this is not where you're going to be. So you're going to do the best that you can, but eventually you're going to have to strive and keep fighting to get to where you need to go. And that's what I did. After a few months, I quit that job. I found another job. It was just always juggling, always looking for jobs, always looking for opportunities, always moving, because I couldn't blame anybody. I couldn't blame anyone. I could never feel sorry for myself for being in the situation that I was. I didn't allow myself to have that pity party. Every time I feel like having that pity party, I would just say, look, your situation is better than the next person, because look at the homeless. Look at the people who were born into way different scenarios than you. You're still living, you're still breathing. You have to keep moving. You have to go forward. And that's what I did.
Has your confidence changed or increased over the years as you've been able to kind of increase your ability to earn and get that education and everything else?
It has been in different ways. It has in terms of business. When I started in business, even starting the business was just because of all the pure heartache that I went through in my youth. Living in New York, being a single mom, really and truly, those were the things that propelled me in business. When I started the business, I had $1,500 to my name. And I started the business, pretty much went to the landlord and told him, look, I'm going to make a lot of money, but I don't have any money right now. And what I need for you to do is to prorate whatever the rent is, prorate that until the end, so that I would be able to afford this place. And he took a gamble at me and gave me the place that I couldn't even afford. Well, I gave him that $1,500 that I had. I just gave him that as the first month, last month in security. And I didn't pay any rent until I moved in March, and I didn't have to pay him until July. And that's pretty much those little situations and those little nuggets of gold, really, people taking a gamble at me, was pretty much how I started. It wasn't me. It was just the fact that I was able to tell someone a story, and this person believed in the story or took a gamble at me and have faith in me to be able to pay him, because I didn't have any money to start. And I took the place within 3 years. I was able to market and build and do what I needed to do. And within 3 years, I bought the building that I currently practice at. And if this landlord didn't take the chance in me, I probably wouldn't have been able to do all the stuff that I have done. It's just you talk about, the confidence. The confidence could only be gained from different failures or different opportunities that I rose from, different opportunities that came in, and see how God, or whatever you want to call it, came in and showed me a better way of doing things. So you gain the confidence by pretty much succeeding or remembering, hey, this is where you were. It's not going to ever be that bad. It's never going to be where I'm going to be working in a store 12 hours a day for $150 a week for 6 days a week. It's never going to be like that. So that was the past. So I have so much better days ahead. So that's pretty much what built the confidence, really.
You mentioned your landlord that took a chance on you. Are there other key people or key moments along this journey that have influenced you to become what you've become? Absolutely.
I had a friend who I worked with for many years. Granted, the relationship did not end well when it came to the business relationship that we had, but she was very influential in terms of teaching me the business. You know how it is when you're in a profession, there is the profession itself and then the business of the profession. So I learned that from her. So she was very influential in teaching me the business. My dad was, of course, very influential My financial advisor, Matt, he's been very influential in terms of teaching me the financial side of things and the investment, even though I'm in a world that I didn't know when it comes to investing. I know how to save, but I don't know how to invest. So he has been very influential in terms of teaching me and telling me, hey, this is the plan. This is why you should do this. This is why you should pay the business property first, because that would generate income. You should do this first, and pretty much lay out a plan and taking the time to be able to do that. So I've been blessed with people that really took the chance in showing me how to do things. I have one of my colleagues, my classmate that I went to school with, may he rest in peace. He since passed, Ray Huff. He was very influential in terms of pushing me to open the business, even when I didn't want to. He just, kept pushing me. So he was very influential in terms of showing me. And of course, my daughter, my young nephews, my nieces, my goddaughter, those are people that they're children or they're younger than me, but they do influence me to do better because I see them, they have better opportunities or a better start than I did. And to me, if I could show them that if I could do it, there's no way that they couldn't do even twice as much as I have done.
Yeah, that's awesome. So where do you go from here? Are you trying to target a net worth, or do you have some grand vision for other things that you want to accomplish in your life now?
Absolutely. I was thinking about retiring early, but there's so much I can't sit still. So growing the business, doing more things, integrating the business, meaning involving or including more services like medical services into the office is the goal now, is what I'm looking forward to do. Buying a vacation property, of course, saving for it and buying it cash. Because I'm a Dave Ramsey baby. We don't do that anymore. So buying that, I'm saving to buy a vacation home. Pretty much live my life, doing things and helping people, providing in ways that I've never provided for my friends, for my employees, for my mom, to be able to have a better life. My mother is getting older, and having money, just having this, the financial freedom also means that my family gets to benefit things they wouldn't otherwise have had. I'm able to provide a nurse to take care, a caretaker to take care of my mom in her old days, and doing things that I probably would not ever be able to do. So those are the things that I'm striving towards. Be a better employer for my employees, providing them with more, because now I don't have debt. I could just give them more incentives and give them raises that I probably would not have been able to have when I had so much debt and so much responsibilities. So those are the things that now I'm going to be working towards, really.
Yeah. And you mentioned the business, Martine. That's your own chiropractic business, right?
Yes, it is. 100%.
Did you start it or you bought?
That I started.
You started
okay. From scratch. Yes.
Okay. And you also mentioned you got up. I mean, I know you talked about debt earlier in the interview with Jace, but your debt got up to $700,000. You said 300,000 of it was student loans.
Yes.
What was the other 400? Was that a home or a mixture of a home and credit cards, or?
My personal home. I didn't have any credit card debt. Personal home and my business investment property.
Okay, so real estate mortgage debt.
Real estate mortgage debt, yes.
Okay, and now it's all paid off, right?
It's all paid off now.
Wow. So I just want to hit on one thing you wrote here in the note to us. You said, my dad always preached to live on less than you make and to pay everything with cash. I thought those concepts were unrealistic in America. And then you go on to say, I made every stupid financial mistake imaginable. But how come you thought it was unrealistic? Just curious for your take there.
Because he would say pay for everything. And then the cars that I would be interested in were at least $10,000 at the time. When I was looking at this, I'm like, how am I going to save $10,000 for a car? I have to buy it and then pay for it. And then you're thinking about buying a house, $150,000, $200,000 is just not, it's just unthinkable. where are you going to find that money to pay for it cash? I just didn't think. I thought this was his Haitian mentality, his way of thinking that you could pay for it cash. But for me, it was not going to be something that I would be able to do, because the things that I want was so much more money compared to the things that he wanted. My dad was very simple. He lived a very, very simple, very frugal life. And of course I was frugal too, but to a certain degree. It was just not imaginable that you could buy a house I never even thought it was just possible to do. Unimaginable to buy a house cash. And he's telling me you need to save cash and buy this house. I'm thinking I'll be 100 by the time I'll be able to buy this house.
Is he still alive?
No, my dad passed away 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear.
Yes. And it was so amazing. I mean, he passed away, of course, the sadness of it. And of course, I didn't need it at the time. My siblings are doing very well for themselves, also. But my dad, who never really made a whole lot of money, maybe $30,000 a year, was towards the latter part of his career as a cab driver. He left us $300,000.
Wow. Well, he must have been proud of you.
Oh, he was. He was very proud. My dad was very proud of me. He wouldn't tell me to my face because, in our culture, you can't just gloat over your kids like that. But he would tell his friends that he's so proud of me. He's so proud of me. And I've done well for myself.
It's
But
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So what did you get your undergrad? What was your degree undergrad in?
I went to so many different schools, but my undergrad ended up being in biology. Undergrad in biology.
You did a master's and a doctorate?
No, I did just the doctorate.
Just the doctorate.
In chiropractic, yes.
So let me ask you a personal question here on the story.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you became a single mom right at the age of 19, and your dad kind of cut you off financially, and obviously that was a struggle in terms of finding a job. You didn't have your green card until 26, trying probably to find where to live, who to take care, all those things you mentioned in your story. Looking back, do you feel like that may have been a good thing in your life and a turning point, to the sense that it made you figure out who you wanted to be, what you stand for, to go and get this education? You talked about how you wanted to give her a life, right? A better future.
Oh, it was a very good thing. It was a very good thing because we don't pick and choose the same way I couldn't pick and choose my family. My daughter couldn't pick and choose her family. It was this pretty much, hey, she's born into this family. She's born into, this is how she was meant to come to the world. And that's what I believe. And of course, she was a very strong driving force to my success. Very strong driving force.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, of course, it was a good thing you brought her in, but at the time, it was probably a struggle. And you alluded to your dad being upset. And anyway. Oh
yeah, he was upset. Just imagine, my dad was very active in church, and that's not what you do. When you in church, that's not what you do. And just even if he wasn't in church, it's just not what you do at 19 years old. You go to school, especially he had such big aspiration for me. My dad pretty much was so disappointed, and just to see my dad being disappointed, because we were very close. We were, literally inseparable. And for him, it was this kind of betrayal to just do this. It wasn't something that I did this to myself. I did this to the family. And he let it be known. He made me know that he was just ashamed of me. And it was to me a big sort of emotional toll to have my dad tell me that not only he's embarrassed of me, but that I have shamed the family. And
at such a young age.
And at such young age, yes. And everything I did going forward was to right that wrong, to make sure that I never do it again. My daughter's still the only child I have. And it's just that I never wanted to just make my dad just ashamed of me anymore. I just that it was a huge turning point for me, that you need to do what you need to do. And these are the reasons your family when you do wrong, it's not just you that it affects your whole family. And that was a huge turning point for me. And the drive of my success also. So in a way, it's kind of like a catch.
Yeah, that's what I was hinting at, is did it kind of kickstart the success a little bit?
Yes, definitely. Definitely was. Definitely
So
was.
let's just, in wrapping up, Martine, I mean, obviously we spent 40 minutes or 35 minutes or so here hearing the story. If somebody were to ask you, though, maybe they didn't know all of the story and they said, hey, you're an immigrant, minority woman, single mom. How did you do this? How have you have a net worth of $1.5 million. How did you do this? What would you say?
I would say persistence. I would say definitely living below my means. And I would say that knocking on doors and even when they tell you no, they're not going to keep telling me no. Somebody's going to open a door and just not set sort of limitations for myself. Definitely would say that. Don't set any limitations. Keep going. When things go wrong, it may be wrong today. It won't be wrong tomorrow. You have to keep going. You have to keep moving. You are not defined by the mistakes you made when you were 19. You're not defined by the poor things that happened to you or the family that you're born in that is dysfunctional. You are defined by who you are now, and it doesn't have to be thinking of the past. The past will take care of itself. The past already happened, but you have to take care of yourself now and move forward. If one door closes, keep knocking, another door will open.
Wow, pretty amazing. And does your daughter appreciate this story? I hope so. How are you teaching her about all this going forward?
My daughter has done very well for herself. She's a registered nurse. She makes well over 6 figures. I told her, it's just like, for me, it's different because I came upon financial independence way later. So when she lived with me, and I'm happy that it happened like that. Because when she lived with me, we were living paycheck to paycheck. I didn't have much, so I couldn't provide for her some of the things that I probably would have done now. So we were pretty much, she grew up not having certain things, not having labels or expensive clothing or expensive things that don't matter. So she learned early on to appreciate money. And she went to Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University as well. She bought her house, she bought a condo, and she bought her condo. I did help her buy the condo, but that's as much as I have done for her. She has student loans that I told her that I'm not going to pay for her for the student loans. She makes enough money to be able to pay for her student loans herself, to pay them off. And she's in a good trajectory. She's doing very well for herself. So it's just a matter of time before she pays off her student loan and moving on and being debt free also. It's just a matter of time.
So what are you going to do with this money? Because you're going to keep working and the network's going to continue to grow. You're going to give it away. You're going to leave it to your daughter, spend it. What's your thinking?
I'm thinking leaving some to my daughter, some to other family members. And of course, charity has always been a big thing. Giving to charity has always been a big thing for my family. So having doesn't necessarily mean that I get to live this lavish lifestyle, but it also means that I could just give, abundantly and keep giving. I do have a lot of charities that I already give to, and I'm going to continue to give to charity and start living, really start enjoying some of this money. Really and truly, I don't feel like I have been enjoying the fruits of my labor as much as I should be, because I work a lot and maybe slowing things down.
Well, that was going to be my question is, do you feel like, is it hard to spend the money? Because you came to the U.S. at 14, grew up in Haiti, lived in poverty, you mentioned, most of your life until the business started getting going and you got out of debt. Is it hard to spend money for you?
Yes and no. It's hard to spend on certain things. It's hard to spend on some things that I feel like I could spend on, like vacations. I like to have that kind of experience. So it's okay for me. But for depreciating assets like clothes and furniture and stuff like that, it's just, no, it's hard for me to spend on those.
All right. All right. Well, let's wrap it up here with a couple rapid fire questions. So what's the most expensive car you've ever purchased?
My current car is RAV4 2017, and I paid $35,000 for it.
All cash?
All cash.
Okay. What about your most expensive vacation?
Oh, geez, that's a good one. The most expensive vacation probably was $2,500
Okay. Do you still use your financial advisor?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you budget?
Yes and no. And
all right, somewhere in between.
Somewhere
Yeah.
in between. I have a cap that I have to save, and then the rest is just like, okay, once I save that, then I pay my bills yearly, by the way. I pay all my personal bills, my house expenses, I pay them yearly. Then after that, I have a cap that I save, and then the rest of it is for whatever comes.
Spending. All right. Well, how much do you spend a year? Annual household spending?
About $30,000.
That's low. You're saving money.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's very low.
What about income? As much as you're comfortable sharing, range of household income through your working life?
I would say from maybe $5,000 to $6,000 a year, or maybe $3,000 when I first started working in New York. $3,000 to $270.
Good for you. Amazing. And last question, what does it mean to you to be happy or fulfilled, and has the money brought happiness?
Oh, geez. That's a good question. To be happy means that I could travel, I could provide for family, I could do things and not think about money doing it. I could give to charity and not thinking about it. And the money did bring some happiness because it allowed me to do things that I've always wanted to do, which is to provide and take care of other people. It allows me to do that.
Yeah, great answer. Do they know you're a millionaire? Friends, family?
Some think they know. They know. They don't know exactly where I am.
I like that. Always, they think they know.
They think they know. They think they know because, they know that I'm a doctor. Being a doctor, even when you're broke, they think being a doctor means that you are financially secure. But some of them have an idea, but I have not confirmed anything.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Alrighty. Well, amazing interview and amazing story. So congratulations on your success.
You.
Well done. I mean, what an inspiration. So thanks for coming on and reaching out. Thanks for being willing to share your story. We really, really
it was an honor.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Martine.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Clark Sheffield and Chase Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website at millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.